Video in which we talked about the DOM and interacting with it using JavaScript. I introduced this visualization of this tree that represents your HTML document, and I'd like to now build something that allows us to interact with some tags, and I'm going to have this be a calculator. So imagine that for our donut company we need our cashiers to be able to calculate the price to charge a given customer that's at the counter. And initially, admittedly, this is a relatively simple calculator, but this could be much more difficult. I could have in the future drop-down menus with different with different donut types, etc. So don't think of this as overly simplistic. Just think of this as a first step towards something that could be a lot more useful and complicated. All right, so I'm going to add another page here, and I'll call this calc.html. because it's going to be a calculator, and then I'll shrink this up a little bit. I'll start my HTML page with that exclamation point and hit return. And maybe just for completeness, I'll call this my donut calculator in the title. Okay, so what I'm envisioning is if this were an HTML page, an input box followed by something that says how many donuts, followed by underneath it an input box that says what's the unit price, or an input box for the unit price, followed by saying that, followed by a button. So let me write all of those things first. So I'll say input type equals text. So we're interacting with what looks like a form input box. And after it, I'm going to put number of donuts. And then I'm going to have a line break, and then I'll have input type equals text, and I'll say price per unit. All right. Now, a problem that I have right now is that if this is JavaScript, JavaScript doesn't have an easy way to identify these input boxes at this point. So I'm going to add an attribute related to the DOM and allow us to access this input box directly. So I'll say ID as the attribute equals, and then just make up something that makes sense. And I'll say num donuts is a good name for that one. And I'll say ID equals price per unit. So that makes good sense. And then put another line break. And then lastly, button type equals button, and I'll say calculate. All right, so not a lot is there yet. Let's just check out how this looks visually. So I'll click on Go Live here with the live server extension installed. And it brings this up, and I could put some numbers in here and calculate, and it doesn't do anything currently. Why? Because I haven't added any type of event handler here. So I want to do some JavaScript whenever somebody clicks on this button. So let's add in on click as my event to listen to, and then the thing that I want to execute has not been written yet, but I'll make up a name for that function. I'll call it calc price, and then let me just go up here, and it doesn't matter whether I put the script tag in the head or anywhere else in the document, but let's go ahead and write that function calc price. There we go. And I want to start reading from this. Now, if I was reading or writing to an HTML element like h1, then I would use .innerHTML as the property of that thing after referencing its ID. But input boxes work a little bit differently in that they contain a value. So I'm going to access that property of this particular HTML tag. So I'll say let I num donuts. So I have a variable to hold this before so I need to capture some variables before I multiply them together, right? So all right, here's how I can grab the input or the contents of that particular tag. So I'll say document.getElementById, and I'll say num donuts, and then not value because this is an input box. I'm going to say, or say not inner HTML rather. I'm going to use value because this is an input box. All right, and I'll go ahead and hit save here. Now, I'm thinking of a potential problem, and that is if this works correctly and that gets set, then what type of variable is that going to be? Well, oftentimes when we read something from an interface in HTML, it comes back as a string. So let me check two things. First, with an alert box, what is inumDonuts currently holding? And then secondly, what type of variable is it currently? Because before I use it in calculations, I want to fix that. So type of. So I hit save. Let's go over to my HTML page, and I'll say number of donuts, price, calculate. Bing. Okay, so we've correctly read something, and it's holding 3, but the 3 is a string. I don't want to trust that using a string in math is going to work for me. So one of the things I could do is just wrap this whole thing with parse int. That'll convert a string to a number, and I already know this is going to work, so I'll just comment that out. All right, so how do I get this? Well, same kind of deal there. So let's copy it, but we're going to reference a different text box. So I'll say, in this case, I'm going to call the variable f price unit, and the field I'm accessing here is price per unit. And another thought is, because this is not just an integer, but a price could be a decimal, I'll change it into a float value, which is a decimal. All right, so now I've got two different numbers, liking that. I'm just going to trust that everything's working there correctly. And let's go ahead and calculate what the price is that we should be displaying to customers. So let I num donuts. Oops. Actually, I need a variable to hold the outcome. So I'll say f total. So let total price equal the first number times the second number. And then let's print that out to the screen to see what happened there. So we hit save. We go back out to our page and we run it. 2, 1, 2. Awesome. What if I do, it costs $1.99. Okay, $3.98. All right, things are looking pretty good. So feeling all right about myself. What if I did 3 donuts at 99 cents? Oh, that's not very good output. I don't like that. All right, so how can we fix that? Well, we could fix that with rounding. One of the ways that we can fix that is take this and say f total equals f total dot to fixed, and then we put in a number here that represents the number of digits we want after the decimal point. And in this case, to make it look like American currency, we'll put 2 things there. All right, so let's go back and check this form again. Move my browser back into the foreground. So we'll do 3 donuts, 99 cents. Yes. Okay, so things are looking pretty good at this point. I want to make 2 more modifications to this, but this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to stop this for now and then start it in another video.